Zias Caravalli here from ZK Research. I'm here in person at the Veeam 2023 event, and I'm delighted to be joined by Kim LaGrue, who's the CIO of the City of New Orleans. Kim, why don't you just say hi and do a quick intro on yourself? How long have you been in that job?
Hi, I am Kimberly LaGrue, CIO of the City of New Orleans. I've been in my role since 2018. Our staff of 50 to 60 IT employees service the city's 5,000 city employees, 400,000 residents. We deliver all technology services, even to police, fire, and EMS, so emergency medical services, and we have about 120 sites in our landscape.
Well, that is a big job.
Big enough.
So
yes.
yeah, as well, especially in a city organization where, let's face it, you don't have the same budget and things that you do maybe in private industry.
No.
Yeah. And so I came out of financial services, and so we seemed like in Wall Street we had unlimited budget. So I feel your pain there. So now we are at the Veeam event.
Yes.
What do you think of the event so far?
Oh, I'm loving the event. The opening sessions were great. The keynote was extra awesome. Yeah. But there's a lot of learning here and a lot of information about the future of the products and actually what we can do with them. So our data center manager is also here, and she's nerding out. She's been nerding out since yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great time.
And as you mentioned, the keynotes were awesome, and part of the reason they were awesome is you were part of the keynote.
That's right.
So congratulations on that. You were interviewed by Anand Swaran, their CEO, and I thought your story was fascinating and worth telling on my channel here.
Okay.
So, you know, a big topic conversation here at VeeamON is ransomware, which is fascinating because Veeam is a backup and recovery company. But yeah, and so I think that linkage between ransomware and backup and recovery isn't always obvious to people, but it does play a big role in recovery. And so, why don't you just walk through your story? Like what happened? How'd you get breached? And what was the problem you were looking at?
So what we saw was compromise to user credentials early on. Sysadmin credentials, password resets constant. A few hours into the workday, we identified or saw that there was remote access and activity happening on our user workstations. We knew then something autonomous was happening, automatic was happening that we had not put into play. We suspected ransomware. When we saw demand, we immediately moved into our ransomware attack protocol.
So you at least had a protocol in place.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, and it sounds like what happened to you, though, wasn't anything unique about being a city organization. It was just phishing and a user that clicked on the wrong thing.
We later discovered a user opened a malicious email, a phishing email, on our city's network. Unfortunately, they had elevated credentials, and the computer had an elevated account, which was accessed or which was used to get into the environment and exploit the environment. It wasn't on the city email account, so we knew it wasn't targeted at our domain or the city in general. Users are the weakest link in any ransomware attack and any security posture, and we just had a vulnerable user.
All right, well, when that happened, since you had a program in place, from what I understand, you weren't a Veeam customer at the time, correct?
No.
And so what was the gap in what you were doing and what you needed that caused you to look at another vendor like Veeam?
Long and complex backup and recovery processes. So we were up against several tiers of data and information systems to restore. Our best plan was to completely rebuild our environment, wipe everything clean, sanitize our data, and restore it to a fresh production environment. We knew that could take a month or months to complete. Yeah. Yes, and we were using a very complex backup solution and didn't have the kind of confidence in that solution to help us along the way and then protect any clean and sanitized data. And our best shot at getting this done, one-time shot, was to avoid at all costs any reinfection. So we knew we needed another solution in the environment for clean storage, empty, clean storage, and a way to restore from a clean backup or from a backup solution efficiently if there were any other threats that we perceived. So.
And if you had been down for that month, what % of your city services wouldn't have been available?
Well, when we went offline, 100% of our city services were immediately unavailable. We did a complete shutdown of our environment. Our mayor was supportive, but made very clear that the business of the city had to resume as quickly as possible. So we were in the process of rebuilding almost as immediately as the attack.
So that wasn't, so the months to rebuild just wasn't an option?
No.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't.
And so as you went through the process and decided that you needed a faster way to recover, why Veeam?
It was so simple. First of all, our rep was immediately engaged with us, was there to help, offered an effective solution, one that we understood. We saw how we could make a transition from a complex solution to a very simple solution. The team really liked the interface. The immutable backups was appealing to us. It meant that we would have something safe and secure as we moved data into the environment. It kind of put a security blanket on our security canopy on our whole infrastructure while we were rebuilding it, and that just made us very comfortable.
Yeah, and so before, thinking that if you're the typical city organization, you would have had some things in the cloud, some things on-prem on PCs. Did you have separate backup solutions for those things, or did you have one for everything?
No, we had just separate backup solutions at different parts of our environment.
Which is part of the problem, I guess.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
that was part of the problem, and we wanted to streamline that. We also needed something pretty agnostic because we had multiple storage mechanisms or multiple storage manufacturers in the environment. So we needed a solution that would let us take all of those complexities and all of those disparate systems and back them up onto a single platform where we could go in and pick out what we needed, where we could really automate those schedules and knew that our restore time would be much faster than it had been.
Now, since it wasn't backed up in Veeam, right, you had it on these separate systems, how did you use then Veeam to help you bring those together and actually recover from that?
New storage. We took those new platforms, we used Veeam as the solution, and as we cleaned data, as we inspected our existing data and cleaned it, we sat it down on new storage and we started a new backup strategy using Veeam. So as we put data back into production, we knew it was clean and that we would have it backed up immediately through a solution like Veeam.
Yeah, and the clean part of it, for those of you watching, I think is an underappreciated aspect to recovery.
Absolutely.
One of the things they said this morning in the keynote when they went through the ransomware recovery report, that I think it was 60% of companies that suffer a ransomware attack actually suffer multiple. And the hypothesis around that is most of those are likely from just recovering infected data.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you wanted to, so you avoided that, yeah.
It's not an easy conversation to have with your city leadership. It's going to take us 30 days to get everything clean and back into production. And we just knew we needed to take the best shot at that. But we also knew our best shot at a full recovery and the most efficient recovery was to make sure everything was clean before it went back.
And so you were estimating month or months. And so once you brought Veeam in, how long was that time?
It did take us about 30 days to get everything recovered. Where Veeam really played a part was 18 months later. We were hit by another disaster in New Orleans. Our primary data center was set on fire in the hurricane disaster. So when we lost our primary data center, we needed to restore everything on secondary storage and from our backups. That system became completely inoperable. And Veeam, we went from that month-long process to hours and days. So within 48 hours, we had restored our environment and brought our backups back online and into production in a secondary data center. Yeah,
wow, that's a big improvement.
Oh, it was a big improvement.
Yeah, and I guess that's it's interesting that while a big focus of the show, like I said, is ransomware, part of backup recovery is disaster recovery.
Yes.
And I guess there's been so much focus on the cyber side of things that we often forget that, especially down in the South where you are, those hurricanes and things like that, they're not uncommon, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Veeam promised operational efficiency, and they delivered, I have to say. Yeah.
Now, have you migrated your solution then to consolidate just everything onto Veeam?
Yes, we have.
And how much of what has that done for you operationally?
It gives us some flexibility and automation. But the thing that our data center team likes the most is being able to go in from that pane of glass and pick out the things that need to be restored, whether it's an individual file or a set of servers and bringing those back. They have some flexibility in doing that, and they can get to what they need pretty simply.
Yeah, during Danny's keynote, in fact, he talked a lot about data freedom, and part of Veeam's value prop is allowing companies to move data between containers and virtual machines, public clouds, private clouds. Have you taken advantage of that and actually rethought how you want to store things?
We're thinking about that all the time. I'm not the biggest nerd in the group. I wish you were here, but yes, that has been integral to our strategy.
All right, and then for those people watching, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been hit by ransomware recently or will be hit soon, unfortunately. What kind of best practices would you recommend people?
Have a disaster recovery strategy. Understand your data. It's the most valuable thing you have in your organization. So prioritizing, categorizing, and tiering your data is, I think, the best exercise. We have a cybersecurity policy we don't always recommend, and for some organizations, the cost does not provide the benefit as premiums rise. Actually going through the exercise, the application process, allows you to do things like talk about your disaster recovery strategy, really know what kind of information you have in your environment, and those things are key to making a plan. I wouldn't advise paying a ransom. In government, we're not in a position to really do that. So the best thing for us is to put our technology solutions in the best position to recover without having to negotiate with a ransom.
Yeah, that may be the easiest way to get rid of ransomware, is if everybody stopped paying and had a good plan for it, as opposed to if there was no money in it. Yeah, and then how often do you recommend people test? And I've always said with disaster recovery, measure twice, cut once is the right thing to do, but people rarely test. And
they don't. At least once a year, we go through hurricane preparedness, and we have to test our solutions in that exercise. Our goal is twice a year, so we usually do that in March before our hurricane season, and then shortly after hurricane season ends.
All right, Kim, well, thank you very much for your time. You have a big job. I know you got the Super Bowl come up in a couple of years. You always seem to have March Madness down there, so the number of people that you have in that city, I would think, tend to ebb and flow quite a bit during seasonal periods, right?
Yep. We're somewhere between 50 and 20 million per year, the number of visitors that come to New Orleans. So it's a pretty heavy load, and we like to keep the city safe.
Yeah, well, I love your city. So I've been there a few times myself, and I've always enjoyed it down there. Congratulations, I guess, on being able to recover, and I really enjoyed seeing you on stage. So
thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. And for those of you watching, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on another customer interview.